We live in a solar system we think we understand. 8 planets, a sun, moons, asteroids, and ice. After centuries of observation and decades of space exploration, we have mapped our cosmic neighborhood in extraordinary detail. Probes have orbited every planet, rovers have driven across Mars, we have sampled comets and landed on asteroids. We believe we know how this place works. We are wrong. Right now, in the system you were born into, there are objects that should not exist, structures our equations cannot account for, phenomena that violate the physical laws we use to describe the universe, things that formed in ways our models say are impossible, that move in ways our physics says are forbidden, that have persisted for timescales that break the laws of thermodynamics. These are not theoretical problems in a distant galaxy. They are here. They have been measured, photographed, and confirmed by the most sophisticated instruments ever built, and the scientists who study them have done the math, run the simulations, and arrived at conclusions that keep coming back catastrophically wrong. In this investigation, we are going to count down 10 things in our own solar system that, according to the laws of physics, simply should not exist. Number 10. Saturn's hexagonal storm. Saturn is the most photographed planet in the solar system, ringed, golden, instantly recognizable. We have studied it since Galileo turned a lens toward it in 1610. In 2004, the Cassini spacecraft entered its orbit and spent 13 years documenting it in extraordinary detail. We believe we know Saturn. At its north pole, there is a hurricane, but not a circular one. Saturn's north polar storm is a perfect hexagon. 6 sides of nearly equal length, each approximately 13,800 kilometers across. That is wider than the entire diameter of Earth. The winds driving this structure reach speeds of up to 540 kilometers per hour, and it has been continuously observed since Voyager 1 first photographed it in 1980. More than 40 years of recorded observation. Perfectly geometric, perfectly stable. Here is the problem. Storms are circular. This is not a preference. It is a mathematical consequence of the Coriolis effect and fluid dynamics. On every planet with an atmosphere, large-scale vortices form circles. This is what the physics demands. Saturn's storm violates this. Atmospheric scientists have reproduced hexagonal patterns in laboratory experiments using spinning tanks of water. But the conditions that produce a stable, planetary-scale hexagon at Saturn's pole and maintain it for decades have no complete explanation. No model fully accounts for both the geometry and the persistence. The hexagon is there. The equations say it should not be. The universe does not appear to care about either observation. Number 9. Venus. The planet that rotates backwards. Venus is Earth's closest planetary neighbor. It is nearly identical in size and mass. It formed from the same disk of gas and dust around the same star at approximately the same time. By every principle of angular momentum and solar system formation, Venus should rotate in the same direction as every other planet, counterclockwise, when viewed from above the solar system's north pole, the same direction the Sun spins, the same direction Venus itself orbits. Venus rotates clockwise, not slightly off axis, not tilted at an unusual angle, backwards, in direct violation of the angular momentum distributed when our solar system was born 4.5 billion years ago. That is only half of it. Venus also rotates with extraordinary slowness. Its sidereal day, one full rotation relative to the stars, lasts 243 Earth days. Its year lasts only 225 Earth days. On Venus, a day is longer than a year. The Sun rises in the west and sets in the east. Physicists have proposed 3 main explanations: a massive ancient impact, gravitational resonance with the Sun, and atmospheric thermal tidal forces. Each has serious mathematical problems. No single mechanism can reproduce the current state of Venus when run forward from standard formation conditions. Some models require multiple separate mechanisms operating over billions of years in precisely the right sequence. We have been studying Venus since 1962. We still do not have a complete answer for why it spins the way it does. The planet that should be Earth's twin is rotating in defiance of its own formation. Number 8. Uranus, the planet that rolls through space. The planets of our solar system have tilts. Earth tilts at 23.5 degrees, giving us seasons. Mars at 25 degrees. Saturn at 26.7 degrees. These tilts are ancient scars from the violent collisions of planetary formation. They are variations on a theme. Then there is Uranus, tilted at 97.77 degrees. Uranus does not spin on an axis, it rolls. Its poles point almost directly at the Sun during portions of its 84-year orbit. One hemisphere spends 42 years in continuous sunlight, while the other spends 42 years in total darkness. Its rings are vertical. Its moons orbit sideways, as if arranged around a bullseye target turned on its side. The standard explanation is a collision with a protoplanet roughly the mass of Earth that struck Uranus during the solar system's formation and knocked it onto its side. The mathematics of this impact are deeply troubled. A collision energetic enough to tilt a planet by 97.77 degrees would have deposited enormous heat into the interior, heat detectable today as elevated infrared emission. Uranus emits almost no internal heat at all. It is the coldest planet in the solar system, colder even than Neptune, despite being significantly closer to the Sun. Revised impact models published in the Astrophysical Journal in 2018 conclude that a single impact cannot explain both the extreme tilt and the absence of internal heat. At minimum, 2 precisely sequenced large impacts are required. The more closely we study it, the more improbable it looks. Number 7. The asteroid belt, the planet that never arrived. Between Mars and Jupiter lies the asteroid belt. In common imagination, it is a dense and dangerous field of tumbling rock. In reality, if you gathered every object in the asteroid belt, every asteroid, every boulder, every grain of dust, compressed them all together, the total mass would equal approximately 4% of Earth's moon. The moon, not Earth, 4%. This is a catastrophe for solar system formation theory. Models of the early solar system predict that the region between Mars and Jupiter contained sufficient material to build a rocky planet roughly the mass of Earth. The raw material was present, gravity was pulling it together. Planet formation was proceeding exactly as the physics predicts it should. It was stopped. Jupiter's immense gravitational field stirred the region, accelerating objects to velocities too high for collisions to produce accumulation rather than destruction. This is the accepted explanation. But the problem is not that Jupiter prevented a planet from forming. The problem is the arithmetic. The grand tack hypothesis, the leading model, can account for significant mass removal, but simulations still produce an asteroid belt far more massive than what we observe. To reduce the belt to 4% of the Moon's mass requires that 99.96% of the original material was ejected from the solar system or consumed by the Sun. There is no clean mechanism for this. An entire Earth mass of planet-building material is simply absent from our solar system. The simulations run. The numbers disagree with reality. The material is gone, and we do not know where. Number 6. Olympus Mons. The mountain that should have fallen. Mars is geologically dead. Its core cooled long ago. Its surface is ancient and still. But before it went silent, it built something the laws of physics suggest should not be standing. Olympus Mons is the largest volcano in the solar system. It stands 21.9 kilometers above the Martian surface, 2.5 times the height of Mount Everest. Its base is approximately 600 kilometers across. Its summit caldera, the collapsed chamber left when the magma emptied, is large enough to contain a major metropolitan area. The reason it grew this large is also the reason it should not exist. Mars has no tectonic plate movement. On Earth, volcanic hotspots build mountains, but the moving plate carries each new volcano away from the hotspot, stopping the eruption and beginning a new one elsewhere, which is why the Hawaiian Islands form a chain. On Mars, the plate does not move. The hotspot builds upward in one location for billions of years. But there is a breaking point. Structural analysis using data from the Mars Orbiter Laser Altimeter shows that the lithospheric flexure beneath Olympus Mons approaches the mechanical limit of what the Martian crust can bear. The surrounding terrain shows evidence of basal spreading. The mountain has been trying to collapse outward. Studies suggest that if Olympus Mons were any larger, the lithosphere beneath it would buckle catastrophically. It exists at the edge of what physics allows, not comfortably within that boundary, right at the edge. Number 5. Mercury, the planet with a magnetic field it has no right to generate. To generate a global magnetic field, a planet needs a planetary dynamo, a large mass of electrically conductive material, liquid iron, actively churning in the outer core, driven by heat flowing from the superhot interior to the cooler exterior. This process requires both a molten metallic core and sufficient internal heat to keep it convecting. Mercury should not have one. At 4,879 kilometers in diameter, Mercury is the smallest planet in the solar system. Small bodies lose their internal heat rapidly. By every model of planetary thermal evolution, Mercury's core should have solidified billions of years ago, shutting down any dynamo and leaving it magnetically inert. A dead rock like the Moon. In 1974, Mariner 10 flew past Mercury and detected something that stopped planetary scientists cold: an intrinsic global magnetic field, structured, coherent, generating a magnetosphere that deflects the solar wind. The Messenger spacecraft confirmed and studied this field between 2011 and 2015, revealing measurements that deepened the paradox. The field is not centered on Mercury's core. It is offset northward by approximately 20% of the planet's radius, an asymmetry that no standard dynamo model predicted and that no current model fully explains. Mercury's core should be frozen. Its magnetic field should not exist. The offset should be impossible even if the field somehow did exist. Instead, there it is, weak, strange, asymmetric, and completely unexplained by the physics of planetary formation. Number 4. Jupiter, and the storm that has been raging since before the United States existed. Storms die. Even the most powerful hurricanes on Earth, fed continuously by warm ocean water and atmospheric energy, last a few weeks before dissipating. This is not a limitation of Earth's atmosphere, and it is the second law of thermodynamics. Ordered systems lose energy. Vortices slow, friction wins. Jupiter's Great Red Spot has been continuously observed since at least 1831. Some historical astronomical records suggest it may have been present since 1665. A storm that has been raging for potentially 350 years, and it is currently approximately 16,000 to 17,000 kilometers wide, wider than Earth. Wind speeds at its outer edge reach 680 kilometers per hour. Atmospheric models applied to gas giants consistently fail to produce vortices that persist for centuries. Simulations of Jupiter's atmosphere reproduce storms, but not stable ones. They dissipate over decades due to friction with surrounding jet streams and energy redistribution into the broader atmosphere. Something is counteracting this dissipation in the Great Red Spot. The leading hypothesis is that the storm harvests energy from smaller surrounding vortices, absorbing them rather than being absorbed. But this mechanism does not fully account for centuries of persistence. The Great Red Spot has been predicted to disappear multiple times, including recently, as it has been visibly shrinking since the 1800s. It remains. The second law of thermodynamics is one of the most fundamental principles in physics. The Great Red Spot appears to have been ignoring it for longer than most nations have existed. Number 3, Enceladus, the moon that should be frozen and dead. Enceladus is a moon of Saturn, 504 kilometers in diameter. It is, by every standard of planetary physics, exactly the kind of world that should be geologically silent. A body that size forms with limited radioactive material to generate internal heat. It has had 4.5 billion years to cool. Small bodies lose heat fast. The mathematics are not complicated. Enceladus should be a frozen, inert rock, indistinguishable from dozens of other dead moons in the outer solar system. In 2005, the Cassini spacecraft flew past its south polar region and found active geysers erupting into space. Not dust, not gas trace, jets of water vapor and ice crystals venting from a series of fractures called the Tiger Stripes, creating one of Saturn's rings. Cassini flew directly through the plumes and analyzed their contents: water, salt, silica nanoparticles, carbon dioxide, methane, complex organic molecules, and molecular hydrogen. Molecular hydrogen is the critical signal. It indicates that somewhere beneath Enceladus's icy shell, water is reacting with hot rock in hydrothermal vents. The same geological process scientists believe played a role in the origin of life on Earth. Measurements of heat flowing from Enceladus's south polar region returned a value of approximately 15.8 gigawatts. That is roughly 10 times more than radioactive decay alone could produce for a body this size and age. Tidal heating from Saturn's gravity is the proposed source, but models of tidal dissipation for Enceladus's interior parameters cannot account for 15.8 gigawatts. A moon that physics says should be frozen is generating enough heat to drive chemistry that, on Earth, we associate with the beginning of life. The numbers do not add up. The geysers do not stop. Number 2. Triton, the moon that is already falling to its death. There is a rule in planetary science so fundamental it is rarely stated explicitly, because it almost never needs to be. Large moons orbit in the same direction their planet rotates. This is not a coincidence. It is the direct physical consequence of moon formation. Moons form from the same disk of material that collapses around a forming planet. They inherit its angular momentum. They orbit in alignment. Triton, the largest moon of Neptune, orbits backwards. At 2,707 kilometers in diameter, larger than the dwarf planet Pluto, Triton moves in the opposite direction to Neptune's rotation, on an inclined orbit that crosses Neptune's equatorial plane with each circuit. It is the only large moon in the solar system that does this. There is only one explanation. Triton did not form around Neptune. It is a captured Kuiper Belt object, a world that formed independently in the outer solar system and was somehow slowed into orbit around Neptune through a gravitational encounter. The mechanism required is extraordinary. Models published in Nature in 2006 by Agnor and Hamilton propose that Triton originally belonged to a binary pair of Kuiper Belt objects. When this pair made a close approach to Neptune, the gravitational interaction separated them, ejecting Triton's companion and leaving Triton bound to Neptune. The probability of this occurring with the specific parameters required is vanishingly small, and yet here it is. But Triton's retrograde orbit is a death sentence. Because it moves against Neptune's rotation, tidal forces do not accelerate it outward as they do for prograde moons. They decelerate it, drawing it closer with every orbit. In approximately 3.6 billion years, Triton will cross Neptune's Roche limit, the distance at which Neptune's tidal gravity will exceed Triton's own self-gravity. The moon will be torn apart, shredded into a ring of debris. We are watching a world that physics says should never have arrived where it is, already in the first slow seconds of its fall toward destruction. The equations have written its ending. All that remains is time. Number 1. The moon. Look at the sky during a total solar eclipse. The moon, a rock 3,474 kilometers in diameter, drifting approximately 384,400 kilometers away, covers the sun, a sphere 1.39 million kilometers across, sitting 150 million kilometers distant, almost exactly, not roughly, not approximately, with a precision that reveals the solar corona in a perfect ring. This happens because the sun is approximately 400 times larger than the moon and approximately 400 times farther away. These two ratios cancel almost exactly. There is no physical law that requires this, no formation mechanism that produces it. It is, by current understanding, a coincidence. But the moon's improbability does not end with eclipses. In 1993, mathematician Jacques Lascar and colleagues published a numerical analysis in Nature demonstrating that Earth's axial tilt, currently 23.4 degrees, is stabilized by the moon's gravitational torque. Without the moon, their simulations showed Earth's axial tilt would drift chaotically between near zero and approximately 85 degrees over millions of years. The climate zones that allowed complex life to evolve would collapse and rebuild unpredictably. The conditions required for hundreds of millions of years of biological continuity would not persist. The moon is not decoration. It is a prerequisite. And the moon itself is an anomaly. It is the largest moon relative to its host planet of any major planet in the solar system. Its formation through the giant impact hypothesis requires a Mars-sized body to have struck the early Earth at a constrained angle, at a constrained velocity, with a constrained mass, to eject precisely the right quantity of material to produce a moon of this specific size at this specific distance. Simulations of this event show the parameters are tightly bounded. The probability of the resulting moon stabilizing Earth's axial tilt, producing the tidal forces that concentrated chemistry in tidal pools across billions of years of early evolution, and appearing geometrically identical in size to the Sun, are each individually low. We exist in the narrow window of geological time when the moon's recession has placed it at exactly the right distance for perfect total solar eclipses. In the ancient past, the moon was too close. In the distant future, it will be too far. Right now, by coincidence, it looks exactly like the sun. The most familiar object in our sky, the one our ancestors charted and named and built calendars around, turns out to be the most improbable thing in the solar system. And the reason we are here to catalog the other impossibilities on this list may come down to the fact that, against extraordinary odds, it is there. These are not distant anomalies at the edge of the observable universe. They are here, in the same system where you were born, where every human who has ever existed has drawn breath, where every civilization rose and fell under the same set of stars. A storm on Saturn that fluid dynamics says should not be geometric. A planet spinning backwards for reasons we cannot fully explain. A moon orbiting toward its own inevitable destruction. A tiny ice-covered world generating heat that should be impossible for a body its size and age. And in our own sky, a moon whose existence, whose size, whose distance, and whose effect on this planet stack into a coincidence so improbable that the mathematics of planetary formation can barely contain it. Every object on this list has been measured, analyzed, simulated. The simulations keep failing. Our solar system is not the orderly, solved clockwork we believed it was. It is a collection of violations, broken rules, impossible structures that somehow manage to persist, and at the end of this chain of impossibilities sits the most unlikely outcome of all, a species complex enough to catalog the violations of the physics it lives inside. The solar system is not a solved problem. It is a collection of questions we have not yet had the courage to ask loudly enough.